This is the news hour with Marina Kukar in the studio. Around noon, Russian terrorists shelled a bus station in the Kherson region. 2 people were injured, and around 10 in the morning, the enemy launched an artillery strike on the central and Dnipro districts of Kherson. Residential neighborhoods suffered damage. At the moment, it is known that 1 person has died. He was a 53-year-old man. In total, there were 10 people injured in the Kherson region over the past day. Among them is a child. And around 1 in the morning, the Russians dropped guided aerial bombs on Orikhiv in the Zaporizhzhia region. A 60-year-old man, an employee of a municipal enterprise, was killed and a married couple was injured. They are receiving medical assistance, wrote the head of the regional military administration, Ivan Fedorov, on his Telegram channel. At night, the enemy once again attacked the energy infrastructure in the Odessa region. Warehouse facilities and an administrative building were also damaged, but there were no injuries. In addition to Odessa region, the enemy struck energy facilities in Kharkiv, Dnipropetrovsk and Zaporizhzhia regions, according to the Ministry of Energy. Emergency repair and restoration work is ongoing. More than a dozen Shaheds attacked Chuhuiv during the night. In the Kharkiv region, a post office, a service station and 2 educational institutions caught fire. 40 cars, minibuses and a municipal enterprise building were also damaged. This was reported by the head of the regional military administration, Oleksiy Nihubov. 6 people were injured, including police officers. These are the consequences of the shelling in Dnipro. The previous evening, the enemy attacked the city with drones, causing fires to break out. 1 drone struck a non-residential building. The blast wave damaged nearby apartment buildings, and homes in the private sector were wrecked. Utility workers have been on site since early morning. They are clearing away broken glass and construction debris while residents cover their shattered windows with plastic film and plywood. 3 people wounded in this attack are currently in hospitals in Dnipro.
There was dust, screams, everything happened in an instant. And a guy was lying there, he just wanted to get up. He said, "I can't get up, Boden." I lifted his shirt and he had a wound. It was in his abdomen. And
everything started coming out. And just fear, horror, not knowing what to do. But the main thing was the abdomen. The balcony was completely blown apart. The doors were twisted a bit. There was a fire in the yard at people's homes.
In Sumy, they continued to restore homes after the massive drone attack on the city on October 31st. At that time, and within an hour, the enemy struck. With 10 Shaheds across different districts of the city, Olesya Borovic saw how the owners of the damaged apartments are recovering and how the repairs are going.
Charred walls, destroyed furniture and belongings. The fire turned Volodymyr Haidar's apartment into ashes. On October 31st, a Russian Shahed struck the neighboring apartment on the 9th floor. The fire quickly spread to Volodymyr's balcony.
The balcony caught fire right away. It wasn't too bad on the balcony at first, because it hit the neighboring apartment. It caught fire, but not immediately, not directly. By the time I got upstairs, all the glass was broken and I was barefoot.
The man first tried to put out the fire himself, since there was no hope that the firefighters would arrive quickly. The attack on Sumy continued. Within an hour, there were 10 strikes in different parts of the city.
I filled a bucket with water. Then a neighbor arrived and said, "Come on, let's get a bucket of water. We'll do what we can here." It seemed like, but what could we do? By the time we got the water, it was already...
That's why, he says, he grabbed his documents and ran as fast as he could to save himself. Then the firefighters arrived, but the fire had already spread. And Vladimir had no choice but to watch his home burn down from the ambulance, where they were removing shards of broken glass from his legs. Vladimir and his family have lived in this apartment for almost 40 years. At that time, they moved into a newly built apartment. Now they are sorting through the destroyed belongings.
We need to clean up, bring something over. At least now there are walkways. Before, there was nothing here at all. First of all, there was water here. Up to the ankles, it was already flooded here.
For now, he and his wife are staying with relatives. He still doesn't know how to repair the home. They will wait for state funds for restoration. But as for the property that's already lost, you can't get it back, Volodymyr laments. In the buildings where the blast wave shattered the windows, only the most urgent emergency repairs have been done. Now, the owners of the damaged property are waiting for a special commission to assess the losses. After that, these documents will be supplemented with compensation claims, but while they wait for state funds, the owners are trying to fix up their homes on their own since everyone is staying at home.
All my windows are damaged. The kitchen, the living room, the bedroom. We've already put glass in here on the balcony. Because it's dark over there, and here, even with these embrasures, at least there's some light. These parts remained. But over there, it's completely dark, so we found whatever we could at the dacha. And from old windows, I washed them, and my son-in-law installs them. We took photos, and then we already put in the windows here because it was impossible to live otherwise. Not only is it cold, it's also dark and damp.
The fate of 3 apartments, the ones directly hit by the enemy drone, still remains unresolved. The walls there have collapsed, so the housing may be declared unsafe. For now, people have left because it's impossible to live there. To support Volodymyr, who lost all his belongings, people from Sumy gathered aid and bought him a phone since he's burned in the apartment. In total, there are more than 50 private and apartment buildings in the Sumy community that need restoration after enemy strikes. Hundreds of millions of hryvnias are needed for them, and this number keeps increasing. From Sumy, Olesya Borovic, Alexander Oleksinko. We are Ukraine, Marathon, United News.
Nearly 170 combat clashes were recorded on the front line over the past day. The enemy is attacking the most in the Donetsk region. Fierce fighting is taking place in particular in the Kostiantynivka sector. The enemy is pressing near the settlements of Sherbinivka, Pleshchivka, Rusin Yar, and towards Sofivka. On the northern border, the Russians are actively using aviation and guided aerial bombs, CABs. But the Pokrovsk direction remains the most difficult. There, the occupiers tried to advance 58 times, just in the past day, toward the positions of the armed forces of Ukraine. Chervony Lyman, Mirnohrad, Pokrovsk, Kotlene, Udakne, and Molodetsk are under attack. Every 3 to 5 minutes, an enemy drone takes to the sky, our soldiers say. Our fighters are holding the defense. In recent days, they managed to return the Ukrainian flag to the building of the Pokrovsk City Council. Vlada Tsimpelenko, more details.
2 assault groups enter the center of Pokrovsk to clear the city council building and return the Ukrainian flag to it. The operation begins at night.
You'll get to the intersection, that's the drop-off point. Jump out of the car. Everyone's alive, I see everyone.
The Russians manage to hit the soldiers' vehicle, but the Ukrainian fighters still enter the city. They move along streets with the most trees and cover to stay as inconspicuous as possible. The fighters of the 425th Separate Assault Regiment Skelia are at work.
Of course, there were enemies along the way. They were eliminated.
The assault troops broke through to the city council using the element of surprise and eliminated the enemy there. And they achieved the objective of the operation.
You're the best, you're the best. Get into cover and stay in touch.
The fighting for Pokrovsk began last summer, and to this day the Russians have not managed to capture it. Then the occupiers threw more than 11,000 of their soldiers into this direction. And now the situation there is extremely difficult. The enemy has deeply entrenched themselves in the city.
It feels like they aren't conducting actual assault operations. They move around, their command drives them from point to point, giving them a new objective immediately after they've taken the previous one. In this way, they try to advance as far as possible, as if to overrun Pokrovsk with their presence.
And at the same time, they try to avoid engaging in close combat. The enemy is pressing both from the ground and from the air. Russian drones are constantly in the sky. In this video, you can clearly see how densely the fields near Pokrovsk are covered with fiber optic cables. This is how the enemy tries to strengthen their reconnaissance.
Every 3 to 5 minutes after one is destroyed, they launch another drone again and continue their reconnaissance. So the crews work non-stop with constant launches, destruction, and more launches.
However, our soldiers are actively hunting them with electronic warfare and attacking with our own drones. Pokrovsk is a strategically important city, so all branches of the defense forces are involved in its defense, says the president. Here is a vivid video showing the work of the soldiers from the Alpha Special Operations Center. They are taking out the occupiers with drones, while the latter try to fight back with sticks or simply run away. This city is a commanding height, and beyond it lies an almost flat territory stretching deep into Dnipropetrovsk region.
The enemy will have a wide radio horizon. Furthermore, It is a transportation hub not only for roads but also for railways. That is, the Donetsk railway goes directly to Donetsk itself through Ocheretin and Avdiivka. And the enemy will supply its forces in Pokrovsk using both the railway and the highways.
The enemy is trying to put pressure on Pokrovsk from the flanks. The military aren't talking about any encirclements in the Udakne direction. There, the Russians are also trying to break through in small groups.
They hardly use any equipment, and if they do, it's not BMPs or tanks in large columns, but rather quad bikes and motorcycles. Every day they try to move forward, to slip between combat formations, to get through the positions, but they don't succeed.
The situation in this direction is extremely difficult. Putin has thrown all his forces at this city. Every day, around 100 battles are recorded in the Pokrovsk direction, but Ukrainian soldiers are bravely holding their ground. Vlada Tsimbalenko, We Are Ukraine, Marathon United News.
In Belgium, for the third time in a week, an airport was closed due to unidentified drones. This morning, the airport in Liège was shut down for an hour. UAVs were spotted near facilities used by an international logistics company. Previously, Brussels airport was also closed due to drones. Because of the drone incidents, the Belgian National Security Council decided to strengthen control over the airspace. Local intelligence agencies in the country report that Russia may be behind the UAV flights.
We need more means for anti-drone defense. I have a concrete plan that I will present to the Council of Ministers in the coming days. We are working on it at the Ministry of Defense and involving international partners. We have many neighboring countries, NATO partners, who are really trying to help us.
The European Commission has restricted the issuance of Schengen visas to Russians. From now on, Russian citizens will not be granted multiple entry permits for travel to the Schengen zone. Instead, an application to cross the border will have to be submitted each time a trip to Europe is planned. The European Commission emphasized that the new rules will allow for more thorough screening of applicants, thereby reducing potential security risks. At the same time, multiple entry visas will still be issued to independent Russian journalists and human rights activists, as well as in cases of medical treatment. Viktor Orbán has arrived in Washington for a meeting with Donald Trump. He wrote about this on his X account. Talks between the American and Hungarian leaders will begin after 6 p.m. local time. Among the topics to be discussed, Hungary's energy security as well as the Russian war in Ukraine are expected to be among the topics, with Budapest likely to insist on exemptions from sanctions aimed at restricting trade in Russian oil and gas. At the same time, ahead of the Trump-Orbán meeting, American senators called on Hungary to abandon energy resources from Russia. This was reported by Bloomberg agency. The UN Security Council lifted sanctions from Syrian leader Ahmed Ashar before his meeting with Donald Trump. It will take place on Monday. The corresponding resolution was put to a vote by the United States. 14 members of the Security Council voted in favor. Only China abstained. In addition to Ashar, the new Syrian Minister of Internal Affairs was also removed from the sanctions list. This is the first time in U.S. history that a Syrian leader will be officially received in Washington. Ahmed Ashar was sanctioned by the UN as the leader of the Syrian branch of the terrorist organization Al-Qaeda. In 2006, he was arrested by American military forces. He spent 6 years behind bars in Iraq.